All right, so I created a little bit of data to use, and we can talk now about how to create an actual chart, the actual steps, and how to change the chart and change some basic things. Google and YouTube can be your greatest friends in terms of how do I change the labels or the axis labels, or how do I change the background and all the details. I am not going to go through all of that. I would leave that up to an intermediate level class to really put the polish on charts. But for now, I have something very simple. It could be much more complicated than this, but for illustration purposes, there's no reason to make this complicated. I have 4 blocks in my harvest area on my ranch, block A, B, C, and D. And I've already got the raw data for how many pounds I got out of each of those blocks, and then divide that by how many acres. So I have pounds per acre. So this is my summary data. Somewhere else I had to do a little bit of math. Total yield divided by the number of acres gives me pounds per acre. And so now I can compare these blocks. What's going on with these blocks? Maybe there's different varieties that I grew. Maybe they were harvested in different months where I would expect some differences in productivity, different soil types, whatever. But I want to make the comparison. So it might be useful to use a chart. I'm going to compare these 4 blocks and their pounds of product yield per acre. So how do I make a chart? I select the data, including the field labels, block and yield, pounds per acre. And I go to the insert menu, or insert ribbon, I should say. And there is a group called charts. And if I click on the little box at the bottom here, I've got all the different groups of charts that you might choose. And if I select each one of them, you can see how it selects these different charts. You could play around with them, or you could select directly from the most common chart types that are in the group itself. But let's say for this yield, I want to do a simple column chart. So I'm going to pick the first column chart, nothing fancy, because they're different types. You can see what they do, and click OK. There it is. I have my chart. Now maybe this isn't exactly what I want. I don't like the title. I really want my title to be Harvest Data. So I just change it. The key is a little different. I can't change that. Is that helping me? Now I already know what this is. Do I need this key? I don't think so. So I'm going to right click on it. First I left click to select, and I right click, and I'm going to say delete. I don't need it. And it automatically readjusts because I don't think that was a place to use a key. And here's my 4 blocks and the 4 data points, and I can compare them. Maybe I want more information. Maybe I want the data to be actually in the chart. So I can right click on one of the data bars, or columns. Actually, it's a column chart, not a bar, because it's vertical. And I can say add data labels. There's my data labels. Maybe my data labels, I don't like them. They're not clear enough, so I'll change the font. I just right clicked and said font, and now instead of 10 point, I want this to be, let's call it 13 point, and I want it to be bold. Bingo. Now I look at that and go, I kind of like that. That works. I can make lots of other changes if I want. Now, it doesn't look like there are huge differences here, but I'm starting at 0. Do I need to start at 0? You know, maybe if I choose not chart area, which format? The major grid lines. Nope, that's not the one. What did I do here? Sometimes I have to look these up and I'm not finding where. Font type, select data. I wanted to change from 0, and I'm not seeing how to change that at the moment. There it is. I double click. That's it. I'm right clicking, trying to get it. It's a double click. So my minimum, rather than starting at 0, I don't need that. I just want to compare the upper numbers. So maybe I'll start at 5,000 and click close. And now look at the differences that it shows. It's much more dramatic differences because it's not starting at 0, it's starting at 5,000. And what if I did that again instead of 5,000? Huh. Double clicked in the wrong spot again. Lord. There it is. I have to select it and then double click. Again, I haven't done this in a while. Let's go to 6,500. Again, it's really showing the dramatic differences. So if you are trying to really emphasize, look at the differences, and this is done sometimes to make things misleading and sometimes to help the reader see. So I will do this on purpose if I need to see the fine detail. But if I look at the differences here and I'm not starting at 0, I'm going to go, what the hell? It looks like field block B is only getting about, what, 20% of block C. Field B sucks. Is that what I'm trying to say? No. So I would never give this type of information to somebody who doesn't know what I did and why I did it. I would always start at 0. So it gives a more meaningful type of number. So I'm going to say automatic. Automatic starts at 0. Now these are more typical. I want to move this chart to its own sheet rather than having it right here. What did they say? Just press F11. Boom, done. Now the chart is also here, but I made a copy of it on its own chart tab, its own chart tab. So again, a very simple process. There's lots of fine tuning I could do, but I'm not going to go in there. There's some fabulous YouTube videos on fine tuning and playing with charts. Maybe I say, you know what, that column chart doesn't do it for me. So I don't want to click inside the data. I want to click in the outside edge chart, not on the labels, not anything else. And I'm going to say change chart type. Maybe I'd rather look at this as a line chart. Does that help? I don't think so. Maybe change chart type. Wow, it worked even in the center there. I'm surprised. I clicked in the center of the data area, and usually that gives me problems. Maybe I want to look at a pie chart. A 3D pie chart. I don't think that is exactly what I want either. So change chart type. And I'm going to go to a bar instead of a column. Ah, all right, that works. Although I might have to play with it. This goes DCBA. Do I want that A at the bottom through D at the top? Maybe that works fine for you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe these are names instead of block A, B, C, and D. I've got block as Ryan Ranch, and I've got another block as the Chualar Ranch, and another block at the, whatever. And so they're names and they're not in any particular order. So again, the chart type, change chart type. I can mess with that all I want until I get something that I really like. What are these cones? Does that really make something visual? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Don't like the cones. But again, you get the idea. You can just play around till you see something that makes your visual message clear to the viewer. And I've got a second one that I want to show you. Here's another sales performance. This one's by month of sales for maybe it's a particular division. And we want to look at how sales goes. And it's by month. So I'm going to choose the data. Oops, choose the data. Go to Insert. I want a line chart. So I'm just going to pick the very first line chart. There it is. There's my sales data. And I've got a couple of good peaks here. It's kind of slow in the winter. Maybe this is a peak because of Valentine's Day. I don't know. Maybe the late summer vacation period, we get lots of sales for whatever we're selling, whatever it is. Maybe we get a lot of spring breakers and stuff, and we get a little bump in sales in our June through late August period. But here's just a sales projection. Do I need to know this is sales? Again, this is an example where I don't think the key really helps. So delete. Just highlight it, and I just hit my delete key. I could have right-clicked and chose delete as well. But I could play and play and play and play with different types of charts, all right? So you need to select an element before making changes, and sometimes how you select can be really important, and that's frustrating for me as an occasional user of Excel charts. I don't do a lot of it, but I have done a lot over the years. It's just spread out over 35 years, or maybe 30 years, whatever it is. Whenever Excel was first invented, developed, available, I had a copy of the very first one that came out, and I've been playing with it ever since. And I use it for what I need. I don't try to become an expert. I try to become functional and professional, where I can show what I need. And if I can't do it, I turn to Google, I turn to YouTube, I turn to whatever I need to get some help. And I've usually been able to find out on my own without too much work how to do it. But you do have to select the element you're going to change. If I'm going to change the title, I got to select the title. If I'm going to be formatting the legend or the axes, I've got to select those. All right. And there are chart tools. So once I'm in a chart, let me go back to this chart here that I created. And because the chart is selected, there it is, chart tools. And I have special things here that I can quickly change. Make that line red, make that line green for money instead of black. I want it to look like money. And there are many, many different things in the chart tools ribbon that help me design what I want to do based on the type of chart that I have. Maybe I like this look. Is that a look you like? Maybe that's exactly what you want for your presentation. Again, lots and lots of choices. Maybe I want to change the layout of things. I want to look at it in different ways. And I can just click through these slight variations on how it might look. And all I'm doing is clicking through these variations. I could manually change a bunch, but I think it's faster to go through these choices and just play with them and just click on them until you find the one that's closest to what you think you want. And then once you have it close to what you think you want, go ahead and then fix it with any detail. Once I've got it approximately the way I want, I can say, well, I like this one, but I don't want the axis title. Delete that. I like this, but I want USD instead of the $sign. I like it, but I don't like that sales data. There, that's what I want. That's the chart. Okay, again, selecting items to make changes to it. Lots of different chart styles on the design tab. I just went through them, and the styles that you will see in the chart tools will be totally dependent on what type of a chart you have. If I was working on a pie chart, the choices would have been appropriate for a pie chart. And I could have quickly clicked through many variations on the same chart just to make it look a little different. I normally don't bother with that because most of the charts that I've produced over the years are informative for a professional group, a meeting between people in my department. And we don't care about the chart looking a particular fancy way. It's not for some presentation to the board. Occasionally I have had to do that, but you know, that's the exception. And that's why I say I'm not an expert in the details of how to manipulate these charts, because I usually don't care. I usually need the information to show to a departmental team. It doesn't have to look fancy. It just has to show the numbers and show it clearly. So I do make a good chart. I just don't do that final polish to make sure the line is the right color and the labels are exactly where I want them, as if I was doing a professional presentation in a PowerPoint to a group. Then I take a little more time. Then I would try to really get it to look exactly the way I want. All right, that's what I want. And it's not sales, it is monthly sales. We're looking at what we did last year, the 2019 monthly sales in US dollars. This is a summary of how last year went. Now it's perfect. Now I can say right click out of the data area, move it to its own tab. So I can say move, not F11 this time. I just right clicked in a blank area outside the data, and I want it to be a new sheet called Final Sales 2019. Okay, and there it is. There's my new tab. The sheet's right by itself, and I can easily add that tab, either save it to its own file, put it into an Excel, a PowerPoint rather. And I could even click the outside of the chart, copy, start, PowerPoint, paste. Done. I just stuck it into PowerPoint by clicking on the outside edge of the chart in Excel, Control-C for copy, move to a fresh blank worksheet or slide, I should say, in PowerPoint, and Control-V paste into PowerPoint. All right. So lots of preset elements. Again, we've talked about this at length. There's lots of these layout elements that I already went through, and you can put trend lines in. I'm not going to talk about those trend lines, but you can combine a type of a chart, like a column chart that we have here, and show a general trend line where the Excel program will calculate these trends for each of the quarters or each of the units, 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure what 1, 2, and 3 represents, but here is a line showing the overall average for unit 1. I guess that's all of the utility units. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm not sure how they're divided in 1, 2, 3, but this trend line shows a trend for the data. And so trend lines, pretty easy to add. You just need to look up adding a trend line to a chart. Again, I'm not going to take the time to do those kinds of details in this lecture because it's not part of your exam or your homework. But if you're interested, do a YouTube search, adding trend lines to Excel charts. Watch a video, play around with it. Spark lines, these are small lines inside of cells, so you can look at immediate trends in the data. So for example, 50, 65, 90, 475, that is clearly for telephone, it's going up, 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 up. So a spark line allows you to put in a trend to quickly visualize what's going on with that row, in this case, or column of data, and quickly see what's going on. This is going up. So if I'm looking at a budget like this one, what are the budget things that are getting out of control? I'm immediately worried about telephone and CDs. Those are going up. The utilities going down, 190, 65. Now, I guess this is totals. The fourth column is totals. CDs, 20, 40, 40. Went up a little bit, but it seems more stable. Massage, entertainment. Ooh, I want to work there. I definitely want to work there. Anyway, the spark lines, as you can see, quickly put in these little mini charts in a cell that show you a line trend for some data. And it can be really handy as miniature charts. And I've rarely used them myself, but they can be, in the right situation, they can be a really handy addition to know about. Spark lines. Look it up, play with it. Previewing charts, how they will be when printed. Again, that's going to vary depending on the year and version that you have. But again, I can go back to an Excel chart. And if it's on its own tab, it's very simple. File, print. And it's already on its own tab. I can set up the margins if I want. I can go into page layout and change the margins. So my margins, I go into page layout and say, well, I really want this to be tight. So I'm going to have a 0.25 margin all the way around instead of these big margins. I want it to fill the page when I print it. And then when I go back to File, Print, there it is, just a small margin all the way around, 1/4 inch. And I can see exactly what it's going to do. On the other hand, if I have it in a sheet and I want to print this, why would I want to print this? I don't know. I can just right-click and, no, excuse me. I can click on the chart, choose File, Print Again, and then it'll show the chart. But I have less control over printing a free chart in a cell. Take 2 on that. If I have a chart in a sheet that's free floating in the sheet like this, I have a little less control over it, but I can set print areas. I can do other things, but I've selected the chart first. Notice how I highlighted the chart. I'm not clicked out here. I click on the chart and then I go to print. If I click outside of the chart, move that chart over. I'm just going to drag, click outside of the chart, and now choose File, Print. I get the whole thing. I not only get the chart, but I get my raw data because I didn't highlight the chart. It's the whole thing. And this doesn't quite fit. So maybe I need to make some changes. I'm going to go to page layout. I'm going to make it portrait. So it's horizontal piece of paper, and or not portrait, landscape. I'm going to make it landscape so it's horizontal. And I'm going to change my page layout so I fit it to 1 page by 1 page. So it will all fit on the page. File, print, and that's what it's going to look like. It's not filling up the whole page because there's more room than I need. I could say page layout instead of print to fit the page, which basically in this case is 100%, I could say fit it to 160%. I'd have to play with this a little bit. File, print, 160 was too big. Maybe it's 135. And there are other ways to mess with this. You don't have to manually do this all the time. 135. That's good enough. File, print. There it is. It fills the page better, and I have my data and my chart showing on this printed page. Again, lots and lots of ways to do this. So as I showed you just now, that charts may be printed with or without the worksheet data. It's just if you click on in a cell on the sheet, you'll get the whole sheet, including the chart and the data. If you click on the chart before you go to print, it will just print the chart. So, or you could move the chart to its own sheet. That's one way. So it describes what I just said right here. To print a chart and the data, it's based on click on the worksheet outside the chart. Again, just what I just said. All right. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much to play with in charts. And I think I've given you plenty for this initial tidbit of information. And from there, I really suggest you play around with it. You try to think of stuff that you have that you could chart, some data that you already have, or make up some data based on school grades or what's going on at work or just some pretend sales data like I did, and make sure you play with it and just get comfortable in whatever program you are using to make charts.